be the greatest president that God ever created.
Hello, I'm Arlee Chadwick. We are here at the Manhattan Neighborhood Network studio talking with an artist, a local artist, a political puppeteer and theatrical artist, Elliot Crown. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, before we talk about what you're doing currently as a political puppeteer, will you tell us your background of what brought you here?
Well, I've always been a performer, and after college I toured the country as a clown in the circus, and I came to New York to be an actor, found myself at La Mama Theater box office, and I do some Hollywood stuff. I'm a union actor now. I do stage stuff, equity.
Now, you've been on this show before with a previous group called the Missile Dick Chicks.
Right.
Would you like to talk about them?
Yeah, all through the 2000s, I hooked up with a group called the Missile Dick Chicks, and they were a radical feminist slam on the patriarchy, and I played W. I had a funny papier-mâché mask made by Haydeen Anderson. It was a great caricature, and they were really outrageous. They pretended they were from Crawford, Texas, a little high on OxyContin and martinis. They spoke in fake Texas accents. And we go to peace rallies, and they pretended they loved Bush. They were pro-war and pro-shopping. It was a singing, dancing group, and I guess our big hit song was "Shop in the Name of War, You Need a Whole Lot More, Don't Think About It." I mean, they were monsters. And while they were doing all this, they were dressed in red, white, and blue, and I followed them around with my clown training. I never knew what was going on. Bush would follow them around. I'd walk into traffic. And they, "Oh, be careful, George." But while they were doing all this, they were wearing 2-foot-long papier-mâché strap-on penises that were painted silver and looked like cruise missiles. They had little fins like missiles, and it said U.S. Air Force and a little map, a little American flag. Completely outrageous. We'd perform in Times Square, and we went to the RNC in Minnesota. We did a little bit of touring. It was just really fun, but it was never on the media. As much as fun as it was, and it was, you know, people would see these women with these dicks, these missile dicks, and sort of go blank, and then I think absorb the messaging.
So how did this...
It wasn't mediagenic. You can't, America's not ready for penises, I'm sorry.
So how did being in this group inspire you to become the artist that you are right now?
Well, I saw the power of mask performing in public, and somebody said something really interesting about masks. They said, you're taking an inanimate thing and you're making it come to life. And it really is kind of fascinating to everybody, especially children. I mean, they see this stuff and they're just glued. But I performed for 6 years, and from '02 to the last day of the Bush reign. They made a documentary about the Missile Dick Chicks, and I ran up to Times Square with the Bush mask. I thought, well, I'll give people catharsis. You know, the idea that, you know, you watch a tragedy, the hero dies, but you don't have to. So that's cathartic. So I thought I'll go as Bush. And I put the mask on, and Times Square the roads were blocked. It was masses of people, and everybody was in, you know, last night of the Bush era, they were so happy. It was this weird joy that I've never experienced. It wasn't white, it wasn't black, it was universal. And I put the mask on, and people were like shoving Bush and pounding on my head, and it was getting a little rough. I mean, but I was playing it up too. I was like going like, "Oh my God, oh my God." And finally, I hear a cop come up and he goes, "Take that off for a minute." I take it off. He says, "Don't put that back on." And he was right, because I could have been hurled through a plate glass window. That's how happy they were, you know. But I saw the power of it, so I started making masks, and I made that Statue of Liberty skull mask first. And the year before Occupy, I was in the Halloween parade with the mask, and I made a guillotine, and Liberty Skull was pulling it, and I had these people they were beheaded. They had hoods on, and they were holding their heads, which were plastic bags with wigs and faces. And they had signs, and one said Wall Street exec, and one said healthcare exec, and one said Fox News exec, and the other sign said the wrong guy. And people didn't quite get it. But I started, yeah, that was the first mask, and then I started making more masks. And
what is your process when it comes to creating a character for a protest? Does it start with what protest you're going to? Does it start with what is what is interesting to you in the media at the time?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a news junkie, and I'm interested in a lot of issues, and I've done stuff about genetically modified stuff. I did a lot of Occupy stuff, economic inequality, Wall Street. I've done stuff about fracking. You know, I'll pick up an issue, and then, you know, I start with a message. What do I want to say? What do I want to say? And then I work backwards. How do I say it best? What is the image that will best convey that to the largest number of people? And I'm really a news hound. I go after the mainstream, and I want to get something in the eye and in the mind. And you know, we're in the media capital, and I give them something bright and colorful, and oftentimes funny, oftentimes dark. But the media is quite open to publishing, and it accompanies stories. And I like to think that it sort of insinuates itself into people's consciousness. They see an image, you know, and I think they go to where memory goes and dreams go. So I try to avoid words. If I can do a protest without a sign, I'd much rather not stop people to think about what it is. Just give them a picture, hopefully a picture that, you know, will stay with them. Or they'll be paging through something and go, oh, well, that's interesting. And they'll want to know more about the issue, and they'll read the article. And even times, there are articles that are like opposed to the politics of the demonstration, but the picture can still communicate this other side. So, and some of it's very radical.
Now, images of you have appeared on a very impressive list of all kinds of news media. Will you list off some of the different news affiliates that your image has appeared in? CNN and The Gothamist.
Well, King Trump, the new one, has been on 3 continents that I know of. It was in the Wall Street Journal first at the Women's March. I had a woman dressed as a beauty queen, and her banner said mishandled, and he sort of held her by the wrist. Wall Street Journal got that, and I like reading the Japanese edition because I don't speak Japanese. And then the New York Daily News got it, and USA Today got it, and ABC, NBC, Fox, New York One. It appeared in the English papers, in the Daily Mail, in the Independent UK. It was in La Repubblica, the Italian paper, hard copy. Somebody said that's a big deal because that's their #1 paper. It was in the Australian. It was in a Mexican paper. It was Gothamist. It was #1 Snapchat picture, and I didn't know that. I was walking down the street, and some kids were like, "Oh, that's the mess. You're #1 on Snapchat." And I was like, "Really?" And I said, "Can you send me a picture?" And they did. And boy, there's a lot of noise in the studio. They're having that. That's that salsa party that next door, isn't it? I guess we're still going.
So, can you tell me your process when you go to these marches? Do you try to get photographed particularly? Do you try to put yourself in the right place at the right time, or are you just participating in the march?
Well, I'm planning out before I go. I have an image in my mind that I want to get in the papers, in the media. That's, you know, that captivates what I'm trying to say. There's usually a picture, and I try to compose it on site. And I'll look for them. Where are they? I'll go to where I think they'll be. If you hold a press conference and you have an issue, they may not show up. But if you go where you think they're going to be, and you give them something that some photographer goes, you know, I could sell that image. Or, you know, I think my editor will like that. So I'm really cagey. I'm looking for where they are, where's my angle, what's my backdrop look like. I got a great picture in the Huffington Post. It was the solidarity rally for Freddie Gray, who was murdered in Baltimore. And there was a big crowd, and I turned around. So Liberty is holding, the Statue of Liberty is holding the Liberty Skull, a sign that says justice with the red circle and the cross. So there's this crowd facing this way, and I turned, and the photographer's wet, and I got a great shot, the Huffington Post. You know, there are times when you can't compete with the event. Like I went down to, the Pope was here, and I went down there with a big sign that said, you know, welcome to Wall Street. And I had the Money Eye guy, and I had all these great, and the media loved it, and they came over and took pictures, and I said, you think they'll run it? And they're, it's the Pope's day, you know. They couldn't possibly, because that just overwhelmed. But you know, I go to genetically modified rallies or the climate march. I did the fossil fool, and it's a big skull clown head with a big red nose and
a moving mouth.
And he can talk. And when the CNN came up, all I would do is go rah 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 rah, and his jaw moved. It was really weird. But I'm wearing an American flag, and I had a big kitchen match on the globe with dynamite sticks taped to it. And it just said, our fossil fuel consumption is insane. That was the message.
Yeah.
So, you know, I try to make the message very clear and short and simple. And once you have that, you can figure out, well, how can you communicate that? And I'll use icons. I'll use Statue of Liberty. I'll use, you know, things that people know. You want to speak the language of the people, and it's culture, it's mainstream. So, you know, I used Uncle Sam. You know, you don't have to invent a world, you can just inhabit one. Star Wars, I've used Star Wars. One of the best ones I ever wanted to do, I couldn't get it together. It was the Thanksgiving Day Parade. And I thought, you know, I'll get some guys with walkie-talkies. They'll tell me when the camera's on the main reviewing section. I'll pop in as Mickey Mouse. It was the last year of the Bush era. I thought, well, I'll pop in as Mickey Mouse, and I'll go like this, and I'll open a banner that says Impeach Bush. And the thinking was, Mom and Pop America are sitting there and going, well, when Mickey says it's time, it's time. You know, it's, you know. Just use the icons, use the things that are Statue of Liberty, all the things that people already know, and then you can try to add a spin.
Now, like you have many characters, you brought three in today. Would you be willing to talk about how you came up with these particular 3 designs?
Well, there's King Trump, and
what's your process? What are they made out of?
this is 2 layers of paper, shopping bag paper. You go to Whole Foods, and you say, hi, I'm an artist, and they give you stacks of them.
Nice.
This is a $5 Chinese broom. I didn't know it gets split ends, but it did.
Looks great.
This is I went to a secondhand store. It was just 99 cents. I thought, well, King Trump, you know. And so I'll build the shape with, I'll put it on a piece of plywood, and I'll tape it down, and I'll build the shape with cardboard and masking tape. And then I go a couple of layers of shopping bag paper. I use Elmer's glue. It's about 1 part water, 3 parts glue, stir it up. And you just, you know, when I was a kid, they used newspaper. It doesn't. It's terrible. 2 layers of shopping bag paper. This thing is tough. You can throw it. 3 layers, it turns into plywood, and it's really unworkable. And then I'll put a baseball cap inside. So when you put it on, it's really easy. Just put on the baseball cap.
It sounds great. How's the breathing in there?
And there's mesh for the eyes, and then you paint over the mesh so you can see. Not great visibility in this one, but you know, I want it to be big. You know, if you ever have a question, should I make it bigger or smaller? Make it bigger. A lot of mistakes people make. The letters are too small in their signs, and it takes a half hour to read it. And you want to be less words, the better. You know, and let the visual. If you can do it, it's hard to do, but if you can, the best one I ever did without words. It was so clear. It was 2012 in Times Square. And I was working with the Occupy people, and we built a Monopoly man's head. It was like this big. It was 13 feet tall, huge head. And he had a 9-foot-tall Romney and a 9-foot-tall Obama held by their ties. And the message is so clear, money controlling both parties. And that really, you know, that really worked for visuals, and it got a lot of media. That one went pretty far. I think CNN got it. Fox Business Live got it. I don't think they got the irony. But yeah, if you can get away without words, you know, it's hard, but if you can do that, it's a better visual, better image.
How did you come up with a dinosaur?
You know, I don't know. I wanted to do, it was a genetically modified food rally, so I made him for that. And he came out and he did a monologue. But I just feel like we're in the time of monsters. You know, we're in the time of savagery, and yet he's extinct. It's a weird connection. You know, we're not doing so well, and. But you know, he's entertaining. He's funny. He can talk.
He's got some fun engineering in the lower mouth there.
Yeah, I mean, I love making stuff, and I like figuring it out. And he's got elastic, makes it close, but there's coat wire that's hinged back here. So if I put it on, he's basically doing what I'm doing. If I'm talking, he's talking. Yeah.
Perfect.
I love interviews. And I love being interviewed. Good. Is this your first show?
Yes, from Deprogramming America.
All right. We'll talk about maybe dinner later.
Good.
You think?
Maybe, depends.
Right.
How did you come up with the image of the half skull, half Statue of Liberty?
I don't know. I mean, you know, she is an icon of America representing something that's really being torn away like her flesh, you know. Give us your tired, your poor, and we'll probably drop bombs on them. And she's a powerful image, and So,
Have you ever had any problems when you've gone to a protest?
oh yeah, you're going to fall over park benches. You're not going to see stuff. You're going to bang your knees. You're going to trip over curbs. There is a mask law in New York City, but they don't enforce it. But they can always say you can't do that. But so far, I haven't had that trouble in New York. But you know, it's pretty warm when it's hot, and you can get pretty sweaty in there. It's really good for your skin.
Now, you have a very successful viral video.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah. I've been following the computerized election theft for years. There's a guy called Jonathan Simon. You must learn about this. We have a handful of computer companies that count 90% of our votes now in private, in secret, with proprietary software. So even if your local election board has the chops to examine the software, they can't legally do so. So I went down to the Board of Elections after the disaster, and I gave a little talk, and I said, these are the 5 boroughs of New York, Manhattan results, Bronx, and I said, and they all went in this box. I said, this is private proprietary software. They're stealing our votes. And it got put online, and I didn't know, and somebody said, Elliot, check this out. It had 30,000 hits. It went to 3 million. I'm very concerned about the issue. I've been talking about it endlessly and posting it everywhere. They've been stealing the country with computers for years. This is the 9/11, the JFK, you never talk about it. People in power know that it's happening, but we know about this because the exit polling data. On election eve, experts go out, thousands of people have been doing this for years, say, who did you just vote for? And if the exit polling data, which is the gold standard of polling, is more than 2% different from the official junk that spits out of the computer, well, that's election fraud. It was 11.8% off in the primary in New York. It was 14% off in Alabama. The UN and the State Department use it as a measure of foreign elections. If it's more than 2% off in Bulgaria, they say that's a fraudulent election. Here, they just adjust the exit polling data to match whatever the computers spit out. And researchers have been studying this for years. They call it the red shift. You strip the voting rolls of people so fewer can vote, and then you flip it with computers. It's a secret coup. It's a silent coup. Bernie won the primary, and Hillary won the general, I believe. Without a hand count, you can't verify that. Look what happened to Jill Stein when she tried to get her hand count. She spent millions of dollars, and she couldn't do it. So you hear people say, oh, don't worry, there's a paper trail. You can't see the paper. It's all, trust us, we'll count the votes, and we'll tell you who won. They've slowly taken over the state houses. There's 30 of them now. They've taken over the Congress. We may never see another Democratic president because this is ongoing, and nobody wants to talk about it, so I'm talking about it. So that's what I said in the video, and went to 3 million hits. It's amazing.
Will this issue be reflected in a masked character at any point?
Well, I've gotten a couple of images, one into USA Today. Jill Stein went to speak at Trump Tower when you could still get within 2 blocks. Now you can't. And I got, USA Today got a photo, and my friend Marni was just there as a voter who was gagged and bound, got a nice interview. And CNN took a picture of it at the convention in Philadelphia, and to my astonishment, they published it. You know, but if you think, oh, we can take over the Democratic Party, we just have to elect progressives, you know, we got to work really hard. No, they're counting the numbers. They don't steal every election, just enough to keep the balance of power. So we want peace, we get war. We want health care, it doesn't happen. The majority of this country is far more progressive than what you're seeing expressed because the will of the people isn't being expressed. This is a really devastating little coup they've got.
So what's in the future as far as your masked characters?
I don't know.
Do you envision, can you give us a heads up on your next character or your next visual that you're going to do?
Well, I don't know. This weekend there's a big tax protest, and there's a group doing a big sketch comedy of the Tea Party, and they're going to throw Trump's, his little cabinet dolls are going to be thrown into the water, and I guess they have cardboard that's going to be the water. And I just ran into one of the people, and I said, well, you want me to come as Trump? And they were like, we'll let you know. So they might be doing the sketch. I might be doing that at Bryant Park on Saturday at 1 and then 5 again. I don't know. But I thought I'd show up there with something. King Trump, people love it so much. It scares me.
Do you usually go alone, or do you go with a team of people?
I work a lot with this woman, Marni Halhasa. I met her over Occupy, and we were both doing sort of mediagenic things. She does a funny thing. It would never occur to me. She's journalist, Columbia journalist, a lawyer, and a professional figure skater since she was 13. And she's beautiful, and she does this presentational kind of thing, and it's great for my work. So I put her in a million things, and I saw her in Occupy, and I liked what she was doing. She'd have, like, she'd dress up as an S&M queen. She's very sexy, with a whip, and she'd have all the bankers, like, in a jail. And she did a inflated sex toy and put Jamie Dimon's face on it, and Bad Banker. I mean, it was all sort of sexy, funny, political stuff about economics. So we started working, and we've done a lot of shows together. She and I have done a lot of stuff. And she'll be there this weekend doing her Money Bunny character. She's been a professional parade personality for years, and for the Halloween parade, I had a big sign. It's a funny photo of Trump with his mouth open. It's a really funny photo, and I printed it this big, and it was after that pussy grabbing thing. So she dressed up as a cat and had big claw fingers, and I took this big photo and I shredded the forehead and sort of curled it forward. So it has this weird 3D effect, and it says, "These paws have claws," and that was a big hit at the parade and stuff. So, yeah, I work with her a lot.
Well,
Can I admit something?
yes.
I didn't want to make Trump. I put it off to the very last
The sculpt
second.
it's a really good shape. You nailed the shape of the caricature of him,
Well,
I gotta say.
I gotta say, the profile is actually his. I got it off a photograph and I expanded. That's actually his profile.
Yeah.
The face, I kind of winged it, but the only thing I changed, I gave him a pouty lip.
Yeah.
But, you know, I didn't want to make him. I saw
Yeah.
what was happening. He'd won, supposedly. And I put it off to the last minute, and 5 days before the inauguration, I just started cranking. I did 16-hour days, 5 days in a row, made the eagle in the cage, and knocked him out.
The eagle in the cage is a wonderful visual. Where'd you come up with that?
Well, you know, it's the American eagle, but he's maimed, and he's got a wing chopped off, and he's got a sling.
Yeah.
And his expression is really silly. I mean, he's funny. He's funny to look at, but it's serious, you know. And you know, King, of course, the monarch, no longer a democracy. You know, it's the subtext of it.
Yeah. So, our president is not one that supports the arts. It must be somewhat satisfying to counteract some of his actions with art. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, I think it's tragic that we don't teach art in school. I think it's, you know, for kids to be exposed to art and their own creativity and their own imagination at a young age is life transforming. And we're not doing that. You know, the French give almost $1 billion to support the arts every year. The Canadians, hundreds of millions. You know, here it's pathetic what we do. But then, you know, anything that serves the people is really in short supply in this country. You know, as we turn into more and more corporate oligarchy, you can expect less and less functioning services. And now we're at a crisis moment where Trump, you know, has really called people out onto the street. There's, you know, this is sort of the line in the sand. People aren't having it. And we'll see. I mean, you know, there's a real sense of movement now. There's a real, you know, change in the air, and hopefully it stays active.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like the viewers to know about your art or your endeavors or your political stance?
Well, I mean, you know, I like the performing and I like the making of things, and you know, I enjoy it. I like acting and traditional acting, and this is sort of like a duty. This is sort of like I feel like I have to do this as a responsibility to try to communicate and to try to, you know, help the dialogue and educate and make people aware, you know. So I'll keep doing it. I don't know what's next, but something will come up, no doubt.
Well, we hope to see you again.
Thank you.
This has been Deprogramming America. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Welcome to Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Your regular hostess, Arlee, couldn't make it. She had dinner. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the arts. or food?